answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
There it is, folks. Share the truth. That's what this video is about. Sharing, folks. SHTF, it's upon us all. Share the truth. What is the truth? Well, the truth is somewhat different than the facts, right? My truth is different than your truth, and our truths have nothing to do with the truth of the political leftists. We're way out, folks, on a limb right now, and I need you to share these videos, right? What is it we do here? We try and promote the idea of getting prepared, food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, right? We want to do all that. And we need people to support our network, which means we need to have other people join the network. Join us here on Patreon, join us on YouTube, everywhere we can. If you want the truth, your truth, which I'm sure is not lightly sprinkled with a couple of facts on top, cherry-picked, it is chock full of truth, fact, information, statistics. That is how I like to roll. Now, we live in a world, though, folks, where the truth is obfuscated, where it is occulted, both of those things. It is hidden, right? They want to hide the truth. I want to share the truth. So share these videos. And when commercials come up, well, that tells YouTube that you love this channel. And yeah, they're going to put commercials wherever they want because that's what YouTube does. So understand that there are many different ways that you can support this channel. One of the biggest, though, is sharing the videos. Please do that. Now let's move on and get right into it. Some of the biggest news of the day, I want to start off right off the bat. In England, the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson has completely scrapped the cerveza bug, Jim Jones juice mandates. In England, they're done. And he says this, quote, "We will trust the judgment of the British people." Now, it's looking like Boris Johnson's in a lot of political trouble and he doesn't want to be thrown out or impeached or censored, right? Vote of no confidence, right? Does he want to keep from being removed while he was out, throwing parties and the people of Britain were locked down? So is he stalling? Is he trying to buy favor with the people? Right? Or is this the Swedish approach, respecting people's rights, respecting science? Or is this just kind of kicking the can down the road to disarm the protesters, to disarm his political enemies and quiet any further revolt against him and the mandates, only in the future to cancel them and return to the Faustian faucet mandates? Now, if you don't know who Faust is, look up Faust and what Faust wrote, and you'll see a little similarity there between Faust and faucet. And of course, you guys know who the drippy little faucet is. The little faucet that could, the little drip. Oh yeah, folks, it's coming. It is absolutely coming, folks, because England has ended all passports, mandates, work restrictions, everything. What is the world going to do? The world is watching. I mean, does Big Pharma like this? Does big media like this? How about U.S. media? What is the CDC going to say? What is the little drip going to say? Is this going to set off a snowball, a chain reaction of other countries going, yeah, screw it. Let's just do what we want. We don't need to do what these big companies say. Not anymore. They've got their money. Right? What is going to come of this? This is a massive development, folks. Oh, they can get rid of everything cerveza bug. You could never hear about it again. But do not forget, folks, the fact of the matter, the truth is we have international threat of war. We have financial crisis. We have monetary crisis. We have investment crisis. We have production crisis. We have a tax crisis. We have an education crisis. We have legal crises, not just one, but multiple. We have countries that have stepped over the line into tyranny. Folks, once you step over that line, you can't just step back and go, hey, sorry, because when you get to that line, you better think long and hard before you step over it. So you cannot willy-nilly step over that line. The same way you and I can't look at that line and go, I just wanted to be left alone. And you've pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And now I'm at that line. And if I step over that line, there's no going back. Because what I do on the other side of that line is going to shake everyone to their roots. Everyone would hear about it. And I mean everybody in the United States, at least, and many around the world otherwise. If I were to step over that line, there's lots of people like me, folks. There's lots of people just like you. Whether that line is right in front of your toes or whether that line is 20 feet in front of you. Some of us are closer than others. And it could be that someone brings that line closer to you and gives you no other option except to step over that line. I got some good news, by the way. A good friend of the channel, a good friend to many of us here, and I'm going to keep this private, but I want to announce somebody had a horse with a parasitic infection, and their horse is now saved. Within a day, they made sure their horse got the proper medication, and the horse responded perfectly, properly, the way I hoped and expected. Truth prevails. Once again, the facts of the matter. So it's good news to hear that we had one of our own, folks, step back away from that line, right? Their horse was cured. Whew. That was a big deal to me. Let us move on, though, folks. This is the daily monologue, the daily Q&A. Get your questions in, folks. Get your questions into Jolene here, and we're gonna have some fun, folks. As much fun as we can have, but sharing is so important. And it looks like the attorney for President Trump, Sidney Powell, is going to share information with the January 6th committee, right? They subpoenaed her, and Sidney Powell, remember, she is quite an attorney who is such an accomplished attorney that she presents oral arguments to the Supreme Court. Now, we have our own attorney here at the Prepared Mind channel that is very familiar with the Supreme Court. Also, folks, there are a lot of powerful people out there fighting back. Anyways, what I have to say is, well, actually, she had to say it. Sidney Powell looks forward to sharing evidence, sharing her testimony. I think that this is a bad move by Liz Cheney. I think this is a very piss-poor move for Pelosi. It is a big risk and gamble. You see, the leftists know. They know that the truth, that facts exist, and they're trying to obscure them to make understanding the truth an opaque exercise in futility. And Sidney Powell is going to be there to try and clarify a few things. Now, Liz Cheney and 90 Proof Nancy will do everything they can to have the mainstream media hide any foul-ups, but understand that this is going to be a public, right? It's not private behind closed doors, this evidence. They're going to try and make an ass out of Sidney Powell. And it's funny, typically Democrats and rhinos make asses of themselves. Regardless, the mainstream media is going to ignore anything that would harm the Democrats' position. Likewise, folks, the alternative media, me and you, we need to share whatever happens. And I'm hoping for the good. I'm hoping the backfire against the Democrats is huge. We need to share all we can. Now, I can't share, right, claims of, well, election issues. I can't talk about elections. Not my job. I'm not an expert. But certainly, folks, on Patreon, we can pass around an awful lot of information, and I want you to share it. Share, 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 right? Wasn't that one of those things that, well, when we were kids, we used to promote in school? Sharing is caring. Well, in Los Angeles, they have a similar mentality. Sharing is caring. Well, guess what? The LA freight train looting is out of control. Folks, out of control. Big question was asked. Is it time for armed guards on trains? Is this the wild, wild west where you have train robbers? Right? AOL.com. Remember that? AOL.com. Ever hear of that? Well, they had a news story says, as the supply chain bottlenecks continue, the attacks on our trains, removing our goods that are going around the country. It's terrible, folks. It is out of control. These people are stealing America from us for themselves, of course, right? Unbelievable. I think it might be a time for, guards. But, talking about also what is next. Over in Russia and Ukraine, what comes next, folks? It's incredible. Putin does not fear the United States. He doesn't fear NATO. He doesn't fear the EU. But what comes next on this? If the powers that be really need it, folks, they're going to want to fool the world. Now, there was a great article that came out written by Larry Johnson, published today, right? And he said, hey, look, things are not as they seem. Moscow isn't concerned with the EU or NATO, right? They want to go right to the source of the problem. The source of the problem is Washington, D.C. That's their problem. And they, folks, have run circles. Putin, that is, run circles around Washington, D.C. politicians, right? This is why Putin, even though the U.S. is the target, doesn't fear the United States. Putin and Russia don't fear the U.S. because the choices and strategies that have been enacted and used by our politicians, right, and the military training, time and time again have failed. And Putin has made Democrats, Obama, John Kerry, look like children. They look stupid, folks. But don't worry, if anything happens, the U.S. media is going to lie and make Biden look as good as it can. They'll try and hide the fact, but expect more to come out of this. Master chess player against master baiters, right? And when I say master baiters, I'm talking about D.C., where they throw out the bait, right? They try baiting people into getting into debates, try debating other countries, baiting them into an argument, baiting them into a fight so they can use that fight for political purposes. That's why I call them master baiters. Yeah, folks, it's legitimate. It's a legitimate name, and I have legitimate concerns. My concern and fear with Putin is not that he will attack the United States. My concern is that Biden and the Democrats will continue to make this nation look weak and ignorant. Don't worry, folks. Don't worry. They won't let us down. They will not. When I say I want you to share the truth, share facts, share statistics, share everything, right? The J6 committee, once again, the January 6th committee, it's issued subpoenas for Trump's lawyers, Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell, who we just talked about, Boris Epstein. What they want to do is accuse them of pushing lies. You see, what's going on here is they're writing lies and hoping that they become future history. Take, for example, the assassination of John F. Kennedy. They said it was a magic bullet, that one bullet was in the air for multiple seconds and was responsible for over half a dozen wounds and landed on a hospital gurney, having fallen out of a wound with a perfectly shaped bullet. Anyways, the point being that, that was the magic bullet theory. And America was told by politicians, including Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Earl Warren. It was the Warren Commission. That was the grossest lie, and America has had to live with it. 9/11, we had the 9/11 Commission. I believe nowhere in the 9/11 Commission is Building 7 mentioned. And now we get to J6, folks, January 6th. The J6 committee, it's gathering information, gathering facts, and they're writing down their lies because they want their lies to become accepted history. I say share the truth. Share this channel. Sit down, watch a few commercials. Just wait it out, just like any other TV show. Watch your commercials, watch the video, and think for yourself. And decide, is this information valuable enough for sharing? Now, understandably, folks, we look at this information every single day, and it just adds more and more and more evidence to the facts that we have come to know and accept as supporting our ideas and notions that shit has hit the fan and we all need to be prepared. But there are many people out there who aren't awake, many that are waking up, and some that have recently just woken up, and they need more. They need what we're doing on a daily basis because they're playing catch up. And I hope everyone has at least 1 month's worth of food stored up in their home. Complete meals for 1 month for everyone that lives there, because folks, we're going to have problems. We're going to have interruptions in our food supply. That's not me making it up. It's not me making it up, folks. We've been told by experts. We've been told by the media. We've been told by politicians themselves that stuff is coming, that we're going to have shortages, that there's going to be problems, that power is going to go out. Unbelievable where this is going, folks. And half the country supports this administration, right? Some big polls have been released between quarantine camps, fines, and even prison. Democrats support this in scary numbers. Oh yeah. Who is affected by this? Those who have chosen not to take the Jim Jones juice, folks. And get this. Here's a number for you to really consider, because the last video I did had to do with the abuse of our children at the hands of these tyrants in schools. Understand and listen to this. More than a quarter of polled Democrats, would like to see the government take children away from their parents who do not comply with mandatory cerveza-bug juicination. More than a quarter of Democrats, folks. That is a big number. Look back into history. Look at the facts and understand the truth of the matter. The ugly truth, if you will. Democrats are supporting all of this, including Dr. Faucett, who has been proven and demonstrated time and time again to be an interesting character, to say the least. It's not getting better, folks. It's getting worse. There are people who are waking up. Waking up. Now, this is interesting. I had to go with this. Since the Supreme Court said, hey, well, while we can make and mandate that healthcare workers, doctors, physicians, physical PAs, physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, nurses, anyone working, medical professionals can be forced. Well, they can't be forced, but they can be told either you get Jim Jones juice or there's the door, you're fired. So it sounds like coercion to me. Whether or not they claim to have the authority, it's still coercion, which is a violation, folks. Whether or not the government thinks they have the lawful right to do it. Anyways, private corporations were told, nah, you don't have to. And so private corporations are looking around going, well, if we force this, can we be sued? Is it a form of coercion? Is it some sort of financial duress? So Starbucks, folks, has decided to nix their requirements for Jim Jones juice. And so it's interesting, folks. Are companies too woke, or are they not too woke, right? Kind of like to be or not to be. Except, hey, are you too woke? So woke you can't see what's going on? Or are you going to learn some lessons? It's interesting, folks. General Electric, major mega corporation. General Electric, also military industrial complex corporation, said, nope, we're not doing it anymore. Now Starbucks. We got Boris Johnson in the UK going, we're done with it. Of course, Sweden never joined the stupid parade. They have other stupid things they're dealing with up there. But it is getting nasty, folks. The lines are being drawn. There are legal problems, at the very least, with what's been done. Challenges that have been issued. Questions that are being asked. And isn't that what the Supreme Court says they're doing? Well, you know, there's a legal question here. I guess we ought to look into it. But see, I can't ask questions, not too pointed, because if I do, you may come to a conclusion, come to an answer of your own, right? That they don't agree. So to woke or not to woke, that is the question, folks. This came up. I want you guys, if you can, to join Patreon. It is critical for the survival of this channel. At some point, YouTube is going to get rid of us altogether. At some point, done, gone. At some point. Whether we like it or not, whether I play by the rules or not, eventually they're going to find a way to get rid of me. That said, I need you on Patreon. Go to patreon.com. Sign up with the Prepared Mind, $2 a month. Now understand this, folks. Here's an example. Here is an example of what is over there. There was a powerful video, folks, taken from a panel of physicians at a public conference. And all it took were a few well-planned, well-devised, well-thought-out questions, and a Pandora's box sprang open, folks. I wish I could tell you more. What I told everyone who's on Patreon is once you get that video inside Patreon, right? We have links every day to stuff I can't talk about in video on YouTube out there. I'm not allowed to talk, folks. I will be removed off of every network, every social media network, right? And it was about what is in, what's really in Jim Jones juice. It was a sober explanation of what is available in terms of information, knowledge, and medical opinion. Folks, we all need to make informed decisions, and we know that the real experts are Dr. Fauci and the CDC. So make sure you consult the real experts, because we need to share the truth, folks.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
But you guys, you can handle the truth. And this really is, folks, all about the truth. What is the truth? What are the facts? What does history tell us? Well, right now in Illinois, all residents in Illinois will be entered, whether they like it or not, entered into a medical database to determine whether or not you have had the Jim Jones juice. And they're voting on it, folks. Oh, yeah. If it passes. Has it passed? HB 4244 in Illinois? I don't know. But understand this, folks. Do you think the Nazis just woke up one day and said, okay, let's just start rounding up the Jews, rounding up the gypsies, rounding up the minorities from other countries we don't like based on their skin color, their ethnicity? Do you think the Nazis just figured that out one day and they're like, okay, done? No, they had lists, folks. One of the first things a tyrant does is make a list, put everyone on it. You're going to make a list, going to check it twice, and then put everyone in concentration camps. Truth, folks, the facts. These people don't want you to know that's what they're really up to. No, this list is for the government to use. For what purpose? You see, trusting government is a little tricky. It's a little tricky because they've been known to lie. They've been known to never admit when they're wrong. And here is a great example. Jen Psaki, Raggedy Ann herself. That's right, America's favorite redheaded peppermint patty lookalike. The circle-back jerk queen herself. She came out and said, he stands by everything he said. Speaking of Biden, he stands by everything he said. Well, what was she talking about? He labeled millions of Americans domestic enemies. And Psaki says Biden stands by everything he said. Well, what does a country do with domestic enemies? Well, I guess they just keep lists. What happens when the country, any country, decides that they're being attacked by domestic enemies? Well, that country then executes orders by its police, military, or any other group it deems necessary to go after its domestic enemies, its internal enemies. Every country has done that. Stalin, the communist, did it to his own military as well as his own people he didn't like. Same with Chairman Mao, the communist, rounded up and murdered tens of millions of people, just like Stalin. These people were domestic enemies and they were on lists. And Joe Biden has said he stands by everything he said. And he labeled millions of Americans domestic enemies. At what point, folks, does this country, or rather the government of this country, the federal government, which doesn't own any state, the federal government owns no real estate. It owns itself, Washington, D.C., forts, arsenals, and dockyards. The federal government may own some corporations in every state, but it doesn't own the individual states themselves, the republics. It has its corporate or sub-corporations in each state, the federal government does, but it isn't. It isn't the whole country, folks. The United States is that little piece of dirt. That's not going to stop Joe Biden if he decides that, well, everyone that opposes his mandates are domestic enemies, including you parents out there. Now, it's unbelievable. I hope you have your questions in. There are so many topics, folks, and it is all these topics. I haven't been sitting on them for days or weeks. These topics are every single day. Every single day, folks. These topics are right here, and there's too many for me to go over in the time allotted. I would do more. I could do more, folks, except I start getting complaints. John, I just don't have time to watch. Already an hour and 15 to an hour and 20 minutes a day is way more than I have, right? And I have to do that. And I said, and folks, I'm grateful and respectful of your time. I don't waste time. I don't screw around here. We get it done, right? Now we have this thing, folks, about HR1, the House of Representatives legislation that they say will improve the election system here in the country because the federal government will take it over and fix it. Because the federal government did such a great job with healthcare. Because the federal government has done such a good job with budgeting and staying within its budget that they have over $30 trillion in debt, not to mention over $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. There are so many details in there. I could just bore you to tears. No sense going there, though. And this bill in the Senate, folks, the Senate not liking it. Remember Senators Manchin and Semena? Well, I got to ask this question. Will rhino Republican senators like Mitt Romney, Little Mittens Kittens Romney, and Ms. Murkowski, will those rhino Republican senators, will they switch sides and vote with the Democrats, ending what many believe would be a decent election system, or at least, allowing that election system we have, which many claim incorrectly to be corrupt? will they do this? Will a massive betrayal by Rhino Republicans happen before the 2022 election? How much more, folks, destruction can this country take? If they do this, I predict that the coming civil and partisan conflict will be accelerated in such a fashion that we will hardly recognize our own country, much less recognize our countrymen. It is shaping up now. The sides have been chosen. People know what they know. They believe what they believe. They have their own truths, folks. On every side in every conflict, there have stood soldiers with weapons facing the other side. And in every case, folks, on both sides, those soldiers believe that they are correct, they're right, that they're morally superior, that they should be on that field of battle and that their enemy is wrong and they're going to defeat them using force, deadly force. You're going to shoot them. In every case, folks, the armies on both sides think that they should win. But only one side gets to win. And ultimately, all sides suffer. In the case of the United States, in this coming civil and partisan conflict, it's going to happen, folks. When exactly? When's it going to kick off? Well, it's already started. It's starting as a psychological war, picking sides. The partisan divide is being created and becoming so great. It's becoming so great, right, that you can't just switch sides. You pick one or the other. And both sides believe they're absolutely right, folks. As strong as you believe in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, your right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, your right to your freedom, as much as you strongly believe on your side, the political communists and socialists believe you're wrong and that you don't own yourself and that they can tell you what is the truth and that their truth is the real truth and that they are morally superior to you. And that if they decide you need to go to a concentration camp because you won't obey their commandments, they think every bit as much as you do that they're correct. And so like the Civil War of the 1860s, if this kicks off, folks, if we have a partisan conflict, it is going to be extremely messy. And you can bet that the uber wealthy will fly in their planes to safe places, that they'll heat up big buckets of popcorn and sit back and watch and wait and see who wins, however long it takes. And then when it's all said and done, they'll come out of their little holes. They'll unlock their fences. They'll dismiss their security guards that protected them with full auto weapons. And they'll come back out and pretend like they were on whoever side is winning or won. Whoever won, they'll say, we were behind you the whole time. Let's hear it for these scumbags. It's not going to get any better, folks. They will not quit. They will not go away. They're going to keep pushing this. The same way Bill Gates is proposing a carbon tax, folks, at the World Economic Forum, Davos, where Klaus Schwab and Xi Jinping and all the other rich global elitists have shown up. Yeah, he says, hey, we need a carbon tax. Who do you think is going to pay that carbon tax, folks? You think the rich are going to pay carbon tax? Hell, they all show up in their private jets shitting carbon all over the whole planet. No, the carbon tax is for the little people. Right? Little people who don't have disposable income, who don't have vast amounts of cash laying around. Nope. They've got a little bit of money after paying all their bills, and they just got more bills, less money. Let's do this. I've gone past my half an hour. I want to get to your questions, your comments, your suggestions, your observations. What is it you want to talk about?
Are you ready?
It's hard to believe, folks, how much I have. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 huge stories I can't even touch. But let's do this instead. Let's touch on what you want to talk about. We've got Greg Madere who checks in and says, what do you know about the dangers of 5G? Airports are terrified. Should we be as well? Now, are they truly terrified, or are they unsure of what the consequences are going to be? Are they covering their asses? Basically saying what they need in case there's a problem. This is ridiculous. Folks, what they want to do is light up the 5G network. They want to light it up, and airplane manufacturers and airlines are saying, hey, could have some problems here. Right? They're afraid it's going to interfere and that it could cause catastrophic problems. Does that mean every plane is going to just fall out of the sky? I don't know. Does it mean a couple will? Possibly. If they do, how do you know which plane you're on? Right? How do you know which plane is going to be affected? How do we know? Well, it's fascinating that something this important was not fully tested. Now, who is supposed to be regulating all this? So that would be the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. Anything that is broadcast into the air is supposed to be monitored and regulated by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. Equipment is supposed to accept, right, the frequency, whatever happens out there, right? They're designed a certain specific way. Well, this 5G thing is, well, it's scaring a lot of people. Now, I'm not flying anywhere. Probably not ever again. Maybe back to the RMZ, but that would be just for a short visit. But certainly not until they figure this 5G thing out. You see, they keep putting it off. Now, I don't know what they're talking about, putting it off. What do you mean you're putting it off? Right? If you pick up a phone now and click on it, it's going to say, like, for example, I'm looking right here. It says 5G. Is it the phone is turned on to 5G? Or is it that there's 5G signal in the neighborhood? Is it that 5G hasn't been fully powered, that it's like 5G light? I don't know, folks, but what I do know is, yeah, there's a lot of concern. A lot of concern. Now, how many planes need to fall out of the air? Let me ask this question. And I'm going to be a little bit cynical. I'm going to be a little sardonic. I'm going to be a little bit satirical. How many planes need to fall out of the air after they turn on the 5G before the government decides that the 5G caused the problem? How many people need to die from drinking Kool-Aid that's poisoned before the government says, maybe there's a problem with that Kool-Aid out there? We've had a lot of people keel over from the Kool-Aid, and nobody is saying a word. In fact, they're saying it's good stuff. It's safe and effective at quenching your thirst. I love Kool-Aid. How many planes need to fall out of the sky? Or will the government go, that's normal. It's just a coincidence. Nothing to see here. Move along. It's up to you to decide, folks. What is the truth? What is your truth? You need to decide for yourself. The battle of misinformation. All right, we got Oregon Patriot checking in, says, it seems the air is escaping from Biden's Jim Jones juice balloon. I don't think he'll back off because I don't think he's making the decisions. Your thoughts, John? Well, I'll tell you what. It is not his decision. That man can't find his way from Marine One, the helicopter, to the White House. Number one, I think it's because he's a doddering old guy suffering from dementia. That's just my opinion, and I'm not a doctor. Number two, I don't think he spends enough time at the White House to really know what is there. He seems to be on a set somewhere all the time, or down at his place in Delaware. Doing what and why, I have no idea. Is this set at a makeshift hospital? Are they doing all they can to keep this guy alive? Why is it that when necessary, he can be trotted out and he does a pretty good job? Is that a stand-in, body double, if you will? Because to me, I've seen several President Bidens running around, some with black eyes, some with brown eyes, some with squinty eyes, some with big round eyes, different hairlines, different earlobes, different teeth. Maybe I'm just a little silly. Maybe I have drank too much Kool-Aid. But, right, it seems like we're not in Kansas anymore. Right? Why do they need to keep Biden at the top? Well, he's not the one making decisions, but he is the one who can be controlled. And so, yeah, I think someone else is pulling his strings, putting words in his mouth. Will they back off, folks? What's going on in England isn't going to help their cause. What is happening here in America isn't going to help their cause. I was speaking with a restaurateur, the proprietor of a restaurant, the owner, today. And this owner was telling me how they think what they're seeing. And this was unsolicited. I didn't say, hey, what do you think of what's going on? They just came to the table and started talking. And the proprietor of this restaurant said, yeah, I think that there's going to be some court cases that have occurred here where they're going to have to start allowing treatments with what people want. And it was very interesting. And I thought, yeah, the common cold. Yeah, it needs some special treatments, huh? Anyways, what is happening, folks, is we're seeing an incredible swing. The truth, folks, please keep sharing the truth. You are making a difference. It's happening. Just people you would never expect. They're becoming hardened positively in their belief system because the information is being shared. They're getting enough to where they can make decisions for themselves. We don't need Biden to tell us. Moving on, we got Dennis Chandler checking in on the Prepared Mind channel. And Dennis says this: think that the breaking into the train cars are dry runs for breaking into food trucks when the time is right? Here we go, folks. I've been wanting to do this down in Venezuela. Shit hit the fan in Venezuela economically years and years ago. And we talked about it. And folks, I really thought Venezuela was going to go off a cliff and straight down. I was surprised. Venezuela was bad, and it slowly got worse. The Bolivar, their version of the dollar, their currency, slowly became less valuable. But they did essentially go from, a cup of coffee costing 5 Bolivar to a cup of coffee costing 1,000,000 Bolivar. I don't know what the current Bolivar to coffee ratio is anymore. It may have improved and got back to, 100,000 or 500,000. I don't know. I just know that their currency is destroyed. But it took a long time, folks, years. Can we put that question back up, please, Jolene? The deal is, folks, is not only did their Bolivar go down, but food supplies also went down. This is a great question by Dennis. Their food supply, their currency wasn't any good, so how are they going to get food shipped in? Venezuela doesn't produce enough food to feed the entire country, so they're doing imports from other places. And even the food that is created, grown, whether it's agricultural or meat production, it has to be transported around the country. And a lot of videos circulated of people attacking food delivery trucks, causing them to crash and then looting them. People would drive down the street and see a cow or a horse in a field. They would trespass and then take that animal for themselves to feed their families. Right? They're eating everything they can get their hands on. That was years ago, folks, that was happening. What I just described years ago. Do you think Venezuela is in better shape now that the U.S. is being trashed? Or do you think Venezuela is getting worse? Well, I have my guesses. I have my facts. But we're talking about here in the U.S. now. Are we, like Venezuela, seeing the failure of our dollar? Are we in the United States seeing the failure of our food supply system to satisfactorily provide for us all? And yes, I do believe that all of these store lootings done by these radical ding-dongs, these leftist scumbags, and the train car and shipping container lootings, it is all practice, dry run, right? They're getting ready, folks, because I think we were all right that inner cities and these bad neighborhoods, and probably suburbs that have bad neighborhoods, because folks, not all suburbs are Ward and June Cleaver, leave it to Beaver quality. Okay, everywhere that there's poverty, everywhere that there are poor people, they're going to be desperate. And these are dry runs. People in these communities are going to say, I know how to do this. Right? And it's always in the cities, Chicago, New York, Seattle, and then, of course, Los Angeles, where they're starting to report on these train cars and shipping containers being broken into. They're derailing trains. They're blocking tracks so that the trains stop, and then people can jump up, start snapping bolts, and finding out what is available. And if you were to go on YouTube, folks, and type in how to break a lock, you can find out on YouTube how to break any lock, and you don't need bolt cutters. There are many different techniques for breaking locks, and it's going to get ugly. So get ready for it. It's not getting any better. Do you have your food for a month? Because they could interrupt food supplies by knocking over a few trucks, and truck drivers are going to be like, you know what? I don't want any part of this. Gone. And we're already seeing problems in the trucking industry. Thank you, Joe Biden. Joe did this, right? Not only at the Canadian border, but throughout the entire country. Let us move on if we shall. What do we have next, Jolene? We've got Bonnie Blue checking in. And Bonnie Blue makes great observations. I want everyone to love this one. The irony is that the Supreme Court of the United States decided that those working in the medical field are the only ones incapable of making medical decisions for themselves. That truly is irony. Kind of like that. And now, when I was a child, when I was a younger student, irony was taught to us in the form of a short story. That there was a woman and she had beautiful hair. And her husband knew that she had beautiful hair. He loved her beautiful hair. And he wanted to get her a comb worthy to comb her hair. And similarly, the husband had a beautiful pocket watch. Beautiful pocket watch. But he didn't have a nice chain on which to attach it and carry it safely. And the wife knew he had this beautiful pocket watch, that he loved it a whole lot, and she wanted his watch to be safe and secure. So he sold his watch to buy her a comb for her hair. And she cut off her hair and sold it to a wig maker in order to buy a chain. Right? So he presented her with a comb. She presented him for a chain. A comb that couldn't comb hair, and a chain for a watch that didn't exist. The Supreme Court has decided that the people in this country who must obey are the ones who are the most qualified educationally and professionally to determine for themselves what is best and what is healthiest. That is irony, right? And this mandate is coming from politicians who will say and do anything to get themselves reelected, to empower themselves. Meaning the decisions they make have the least to do, or the potential least to do, with anything factual. So in order to enrich themselves and avoid any factual stuff, politicians make decisions that are causing now, and agreed to by the Supreme Court of the United States, that those who are most qualified to decide for themselves, the most experienced, won't have any say in it. Irony, unconstitutional, unbelievable. Thank you very much, Bonnie Blue. Well stated. And then we got Heidi. Heidi. How are you, Heidi? Says this: I realize there are always a percentage of Congress that retires at election time, but the sheer number of them is setting off alarm bells in my brain. Do you have any idea why they are running like rats and where they are going? Well, number one, I just discussed, Heidi, and I appreciate the question. I think it is on target. politicians want to either enrich themselves with power because they love to exercise power, the way a Karen would love to scream and yell in people's faces and then make those people scared and obey them, right? Politicians are that same way. They love power and exercising it. They also love to gorge themselves like fat rats on the corpses of others, enriching and creating wealth for themselves at the expense of others. So when rats give up the things they love most, right, power and the ability to gain money from others, they take that and they run. They abandon the power and they take the money they have and run for it. It's because they know there is trouble. Trouble indeed. The American people have had it. And a lot of these politicians know it. Some are so enamored with themselves, so full of themselves, so megalomaniacal. That is, they think they are gods, that they won't quit. They can't give it up. They're addicted to power and the theft of wealth from others. They love using government to steal from the people who have no power to resist. So people like what? Well, Pelosi's getting old enough. She may die in office. You know, how do these people enjoy lives? I used to think, you know, can't they just serve for, 5 terms in Congress, 10 years, get enough money to go live on a beach somewhere and just relax and chill? Folks, to them, life is controlling and dominating and gathering all that wealth. But what we're seeing, as Heidi points out, is we're now up to 28 Democrats are not going to run for office again in Congress. And I believe it's 9 or 10 Republicans. And these are rhino Republicans who are being campaigned against by President Trump and many other big names like Matt Gaetz, Big Marge, Louis Gohmert. They're campaigning against these rhino Republicans, and a lot of them, or a couple of them, are just giving up. They're going to lose. They're done. They have these rhinos abandoned principle, turned on and screwed over their own constituents. Right? They're not good people. And these Democrats, why are they leaving? Why are these rats fleeing the ship? Well, they can see the potential for it going down. Maybe these are weaker Democrats that, feathered their nests enough that they can live comfortably elsewhere and let someone else do the dirty work from this point on. There's, I'm sure, a lot of reasons why they're leaving, but I think the one that is most decisive is the fact that they know there is going to be conflict and that they will be held. So I'm going to toss a guess out here that they live in districts, that they represent districts within the United States of America where their whereabouts, their name, and their families are well known, and that they believe they're going to be held accountable at some point if they hold office, or especially if they're holding office when shit goes bad. This is one of the things about a constitutional republic and a constitution and law and order, is that you should be able to serve in a government without fear of retribution or vengeance of those that you represent. In other words, if there is law and order, equality, justice for everyone at every level, not elites and then the people. If all things are equal, then you can serve in Congress and come home and you're okay. People may not like you, but you don't have to feel unsafe. But when you get into a situation where government becomes tyrannical, and folks, have we or have we not seen tyrannical government in the United States and around the world, where governments are sending out their pension-loving police who are willing for a pension, for a paycheck, to abuse and beat the shit out of people, not for burning stores and looting and burning police stations, but for merely protesting a violation of their rights. Those people are willing to go beat them, gas them, shoot them with rubber bullets, stomp on them. Yeah, people tend to not like that, right? When the people see abuses by government, they say, you know what? You ever come home, Mr. Person at the Capitol? Why don't you come home to your district and we'll remember you later for this? I think we're going to see a lot of that. Now, you could look to the history, to the past, to the history of Germany and say, they had their Reichstag fire. The Congress of Germany burned to the ground. And so the executive branch of the government in Germany in 1930 said, don't worry, we don't need a Congress. I can govern as the Führer. And so Hitler did. He became a dictator and said, we don't need a Congress. I don't need to answer to anybody. No one needs to come here and make up laws and then go home and feel unsafe. We'll just handle everything from Berlin. Well, Joe Biden, I guess, could do the same thing and say, hey, we're having a lot of problem with our Congress people being threatened, being scared, being killed, right? Why don't we just dissolve Congress because, the people are too irresponsible. And we'll just handle everything with executive orders because the people of the United States of America are now used to executive orders. They're now used to being commanded to do things. And that's where this failure of Joe Biden's has really, I think, hurt the Great Reset, Klaus Schwab, all of these people at the top, because they're really hoping that the people of the world, including and especially the United States of America, would be so scared of cerveza bug, so scared of the variants, that they would just run to get the Jim Jones juice. And that any mandate told to them that they would cower in fear, right, of whatever is supposed to be scaring them and obey. Instead, folks, we have done what we're supposed to do as human beings, rational thinking human beings who have fact and truth on our sides and vertebra in our back, spines, cojones, coconuts. That was for you, Chancey. We have done what we're supposed to, and that is oppose oppression. Oppose oppression. To fight back. To say no. To say hell no. We've done our job, and now we've proven and shown by being strong, by being courageous, by speaking up, by sharing information with others, despite the fact that we may, they may say something bad about us. Oh my God, that guy says I'm a jerk and a dumbass. Well, if that's what he thinks of me, F him. Right? But I put that information out and shared it. And enough of us are now saying, no way. Look at the facts. Look at the numbers. Look at the stats. This is wrong. No way. Look at the Constitution. Look at our laws. We don't like that decision by the Supreme Court. It didn't go far enough for freedom. And their story, their narrative is failing and falling down. Does that mean we've won? No. Does that mean we could win? Yes. Does it mean the battle is close to being over? Not a frickin' chance. Because the people at the top will not quit and give up. They may have to change their strategy, and continue to destroy the country in all the other ways they've started. Folks, this isn't just about medical tyranny. It is about our military being destroyed. It is about education and it being destroyed. It is about the indoctrination of our children and the corruption of the young who don't know and understand because they were improperly taught. It is about bastardizing our Constitution and the legal system, abusing the courts and using district attorneys and prosecutors who want to make up the law and prosecute fallaciously, right, to violate people's rights. They don't care, folks. They're going to destroy this country, and it doesn't have to use cerveza bug. It doesn't have to use Jim Jones juice to do it. They don't have to have that in order to continue the destruction they've started. Our economy, the infrastructure, shipping, our money's value, our retirement, Wall Street, right? They can have any series or kinds of manufactured SHTF crisis and false flags. We could end up with international war. All of these things are options that the evil bastards have at their disposal. Right? It is a battle of misinformation. It is a battle of psychology. It is a battle for the assets, the commodities of this world. Who controls them? Who owns them? Who profits by them? That's what this is ultimately about. Law and order, governments, those are just a means to an end. Those are control mechanisms that the super rich want to have in place so they can continue their accumulation of wealth, and they can take advantage of the labor and property of others. Right? Think about it, folks. If you had $50 billion, and there are a lot of people who have more than $50 billion, very wealthy corporations, very wealthy individuals. Imagine if you had that kind of money where you could make a phone call and the guy on the other end says, "Hey, this is Joe. Welcome to the White House. What can I do for you? We got all kinds of stuff for sale." Right? Imagine having the power to call. Right? Boris Johnson. "Hey, Boris, this is what we're doing." Calling Dr. Fawcett. "Listen, little man, it's time to hang it up. You did your best. You did great. You've been rewarded. Go ahead and take a break, man." Calling up someone in Ukraine. "Okay, Boris, it's time to do the dirty. We need you to make this look really bad for both sides, and go." It's possible, folks. After seeing JFK, after seeing 9/11, and after seeing what they're doing right now and continuing to do with the January 6th insurrection, and you knowing facts, you having truth on your side, will you put anything past these other people? Or will you accept and acknowledge that they are willing to do anything, and it's likely they'll do anything? They are willing and able, folks, and they just may. So you must be prepared. That is your truth, right? That is our individual salvation, being prepared in the event an emergency, whether natural or fabricated, occurs. SHTF can get ugly fast, faster than a hurricane can get you, faster than a snowstorm, faster than a flood that's upon you. Get prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. I'm going to start creating more YouTube shorts starting tomorrow, and Jolene's going to get them out there. We need as many people as possible finding the Prepared Mind Network and joining us, folks, so that we can disseminate our facts, the real facts. We can disseminate our conclusions, our truths. You can handle the truth. They may not be able to, but sharing with them, giving them the opportunity, and again and again and again, and letting them know you're not going to stop. You're not going to quit. You are about freedom and honesty, decency, morality, right? Everyone else who denies that, they've got something to sell. They've got an axe to grind, whatever their problem is. There are people wanting to wake up. Help them do it, because chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Godspeed to you all. Semper Fi. I'll talk to you soon.